What happens when a single kiss destroys everything you thought you knew? And the stranger who saves you might be the most dangerous thing of all. Elena Cross thought walking away from betrayal would be the hardest thing she'd ever do. She was wrong. That one reckless kiss in a Manhattan nightclub didn't just end her old life. It dragged her into a world where nothing is what it seems, where the man she grabbed in anger knows more about her than he should, and where someone has been watching her every move for months. I'm about to take you through a story of obsession, control, and the razor's edge between protection and possession. Stick with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me tell you what really happened that night. The bass was too loud. That was Elena's first coherent thought as she stood frozen near the bar, watching her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend now, she corrected herself viciously, lean into the blonde's neck like he was sharing a secret. Or maybe he was. Maybe that's what all those late nights and canceled plans had been about. Secrets whispered into someone else's skin while Elena sat at home wondering why her texts went unanswered. The Manhattan nightclub pulsed around her, all strobing lights and overpriced cocktails and people pretending to have more fun than they actually were. Elena had dressed up for this. Stupid. She'd spent 40 minutes on her makeup, picked out the black dress that Marcus always said made her look sophisticated. She'd even rehearsed what she was going to say when she surprised him here, how she'd laugh and tell him she couldn't stay away, how she'd be spontaneous and fun, and everything he'd been implying she wasn't lately. Instead, she was standing here watching him prove every insecurity she'd swallowed for the past 6 months. You look like you're planning a murder. Elena's head snapped to the left. A woman about her age, dark hair cut sharp at her shoulders, was leaning against the bar with a knowing smile. Is it that obvious? Elena's voice came out steadier than she felt. Only to someone who's been there. The woman raised her glass in a mock toast. Let me guess. The guy with the wandering hands and the blonde who thinks giggling is a personality trait? Elena felt something crack in her chest. Not her heart. That felt numb. Something harder. The part of her that had been making excuses, that had been trying so damn hard to be understanding. We've been together 2 years, she heard herself say. He told me he had a work thing tonight. Emergency project deadline. And you believed him? I wanted to. The woman's expression softened slightly. That's the worst part, isn't it? Not the lying, the fact that we let them get away with it because calling them out means admitting we knew all along. Elena watched Marcus's hand slide down the blonde's back, familiar and possessive. She'd felt that hand on her own back 1,000 times. Had he touched her the same way he was touching this stranger? Had there been others before this one? What did you do? Elena asked. When it happened to you? The woman grinned, sharp and fierce. I keyed his car, slept with his brother, and sent his mother screenshots of his Tinder profile. Despite everything, Elena laughed. It felt good. Dangerous. I'm not brave enough for any of that. Sure you are. You're here, aren't you? You could have stayed home, pretended you didn't know. Could have waited for him to come back smelling like her perfume and believed whatever excuse he invented. The woman pushed off from the bar. But you didn't. You came here to see the truth. That's brave or crazy. Sometimes they're the same thing. She disappeared into the crowd before Elena could respond, leaving her alone with her rage and the bass that was making her teeth hurt. Marcus hadn't even noticed her yet. He was too busy whispering something that made the blonde throw her head back laughing, her hand landing on his chest like she had every right to touch him. Like Elena didn't exist. Maybe she didn't. Not to him, not anymore. Maybe she'd stopped existing to him months ago, and she'd just been too stupid to notice. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, spreading through her veins like ice water, clarifying. Elena had spent 2 years molding herself into whatever Marcus needed. 2 years of being patient when he was stressed, understanding when he was distant, supportive when he was struggling. 2 years of shrinking herself to make room for his ambitions, his moods, his needs. And for what? So he could discard her the moment someone shinier caught his attention? She downed the rest of her drink, vodka soda, because Marcus said cocktails were too sugary, and she'd agreed even though she hated the taste of alcohol without something to cut it, and felt it burn all the way down. The crowd shifted, and suddenly she could see Marcus's face clearly. He looked happy, relaxed in a way he never was with her anymore. When had that changed? When had being with her become something that required effort instead of something that brought him joy? Elena's hands were shaking. She gripped the bar to steady them. She could walk over there, make a scene, throw her drink in his face like they did in movies, scream at him in front of everyone, let the blonde see exactly what kind of man she was flirting with. But that would mean giving him the satisfaction of knowing he'd broken her. That would mean proving every accusation he'd ever made about her being too emotional, too dramatic, too much. She needed something else. Something that would prove to him, to herself, to anyone watching that she was done, that she didn't need him, that she could walk away from this and not look back. Elena's gaze swept the club, not really seeing anything until it snagged on someone standing alone near the far wall. He was tall, dark-haired, watching the crowd with an expression that suggested he found the whole scene faintly amusing. Nice suit, not trying too hard. Good-looking in that way that probably got him attention without him having to work for it. And alone. Definitely alone. Before she could second-guess herself, before the rational part of her brain could wake up and point out what a terrible idea this was, Elena was moving. She'd always been careful, always thought things through, always played it safe. Look where that had gotten her. The stranger noticed her approach, his expression shifting from detached observation to mild interest. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once, the kind of face that was hard to read. "I need a favor," Elena said, her voice coming out breathier than she'd intended. The adrenaline was making her hands shake worse. One eyebrow rose. "Do you?" It wasn't quite a question. His voice was low, controlled, with an edge of something she couldn't identify. Amusement, maybe. Or warning. "My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, is over there with another woman, and I need him to see me not caring." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I need him to think I've moved on, that I'm fine, better than fine." The stranger's gaze flicked past her, scanning the crowd with the efficiency of someone used to assessing situations quickly. "Which one?" "Blonde hair, blue shirt, thinks he's God's gift to women." "Ah." Something that might have been a smile ghosted across his face. "And you want me to help you make him jealous? I want you to help me prove I don't need him." Elena was surprised by how fierce her own voice sounded. "I want him to see me with someone else and realize he just lost the best thing that ever happened to him." The stranger studied her for a long moment. Elena had the unsettling feeling he was seeing far more than she wanted him to. Past the anger and the bravado to the humiliation underneath, the hurt she was trying so hard not to feel. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Elena. Victor." He extended his hand, formal and slightly old-fashioned. His grip was firm, warm. "And what exactly did you have in mind, Elena?" She hadn't thought that far ahead. Hadn't thought at all, really. Just acted on pure instinct and rage. "I don't know. Talk to me, laugh at something I say, make it look like we're having the time of our lives." She was improvising badly, she knew. This was a stupid plan. Transparent and desperate, and exactly the kind of thing Marcus would mock her for. Victor's expression shifted into something almost gentle. Almost. "That's not going to be enough," he said quietly. "He's not even looking at you right now. And even if he was, talking and laughing, that just looks like you've made a friend. You want impact? You want him to feel what you're feeling right now?" Elena's heart was hammering. "Yes. Then you need to do something he can't misinterpret. Something that makes it crystal clear you've moved on." Victor paused, his dark eyes locked on hers. "Something that makes him wonder if you've been lying to him the same way he's been lying to you." The implication hung in the air between them. I'm not," Elena stammered, suddenly very aware of how close they were standing, how much taller he was, how his attention felt like a physical weight. "I'm not suggesting anything you're not comfortable with," Victor said calmly. "But you came to me asking for help sending a message. I'm telling you what message he'll actually hear." Elena's mind was racing. This was insane. She didn't kiss random strangers in nightclubs. She didn't use people to make ex-boyfriends jealous. She was the responsible one, the planner, the woman who had a 5-year life plan and a detailed budget spreadsheet. But that woman had just watched her boyfriend of 2 years choose someone else without a second thought. Maybe it was time to be someone different. "Okay," she heard herself say. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Okay?" "Yes." Elena lifted her chin, trying to look more confident than she felt. "Do it. Make him see." For a moment, Victor didn't move, just watched her with that same unreadable expression, like he was trying to decide something. Then he stepped closer, eliminating the careful distance between them. "Last chance to change your mind," he murmured. Elena's pulse was thundering in her ears. Every rational thought was screaming at her to stop, to walk away, to handle this like an adult. She grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him down. The kiss was meant to be performative. Quick, simple, just enough to make a point. It wasn't. The second Victor's mouth met hers, something shifted. His hand came up to cup the back of her neck, fingers threading into her hair, and the kiss deepened from a statement into something else entirely. Something that made her forget about Marcus, forget about the club, forget about everything except the way Victor kissed like he meant it. Like this wasn't a favor for a stranger, but something he wanted. Elena's free hand found his shoulder, gripping hard enough that she distantly registered she was probably wrinkling his expensive suit. She didn't care. Couldn't make herself care about anything except the fact that this man, this complete stranger, was kissing her like she was the only person in the room. When they finally broke apart, Elena was breathless. Victor's expression had changed. The detached amusement was gone, replaced by something darker, more intense. "Well," he said quietly. "That was unexpected." Elena couldn't find words. Her lips were tingling. Her heart was doing something complicated in her chest. She felt like she'd just stepped off a cliff and was still waiting to hit the ground. "Did he see?" she managed finally. Victor's mouth quirked. "Oh, he saw." Elena turned, following his gaze. Marcus was staring at them, his face pale with shock. The blonde was still talking, oblivious, but Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He was looking at Elena like he'd never seen her before. "Good. Mission accomplished," Victor said. There was something in his tone that Elena couldn't quite identify. He definitely got the message. She should feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she felt unsteady, like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "Thank you," she said, stepping back, creating distance, trying to remember how to breathe normally. "I appreciate you playing along." "Is that what I was doing?" Victor's dark eyes were still fixed on her face, studying her in a way that made her feel exposed. "Playing along?" Before Elena could figure out how to respond, Marcus was there. "Elena, what the hell?" She'd imagined this moment, practiced in her head what she'd say when he finally noticed her, finally had to face what he'd done. In her imagination, she'd been calm, cutting, perfectly composed. "Marcus?" Her voice came out flat, tired. "Funny seeing you here. Thought you had to work." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. The blonde had followed him over, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to embarrassment as she pieced together what was happening. "I can explain." "Don't." Elena cut him off. "Seriously, I don't care." "You don't care?" Marcus's voice rose. "Then what was that?" He jerked his chin toward Victor, who was watching the scene unfold with the detached interest of someone watching a mildly entertaining movie. "That," Elena said slowly, "was me realizing I wasted 2 years on someone who thinks I'm stupid enough to believe his lies." "Jesus, Elena, you're being dramatic." "Am I?" The anger was back, hot and bright. "I'm being dramatic because I'm upset that my boyfriend is here with another woman? Because I'm done pretending I don't notice when you cancel plans and lie about where you've been?" The blonde took a step back, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. Smart woman. Marcus's jaw tightened. "We should talk about this somewhere private." "We're done talking. We're done. Period." "You can't just—" He grabbed her arm. Victor moved. It happened so fast Elena barely registered it. 1 second Marcus's fingers were digging into her bicep. The next Victor's hand was locked around Marcus's wrist, squeezing just hard enough to make him let go with a sharp intake of breath. "She said you're done," Victor said quietly. His voice was still calm, still controlled, but there was steel underneath it now. Something that made the hair on the back of Elena's neck stand up. "I suggest you listen." Marcus jerked his hand back, cradling it against his chest. "Who the hell are you?" Someone with better manners. Victor's expression hadn't changed. He still looked mildly amused, like this was all slightly beneath him, but his body language had shifted. There was something predatory in the way he stood now, something that suggested he was very used to situations turning physical and very confident in how they'd end. This is none of your business, Marcus snapped. You made it my business when you touched her. The two men stared at each other. Elena had the bizarre sense that she was watching some kind of dominance ritual she didn't fully understand. Marcus was trying to puff himself up, trying to look intimidating. It wasn't working. Next to Victor's quiet confidence, Marcus just looked like he was trying too hard. Elena, Marcus tried again, his attention swinging back to her. Come on, let's go outside and talk, just the two of us. No, his expression darkened. You're really going to throw away 2 years over one misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? Elena laughed, sharp and bitter. That's what we're calling this? A misunderstanding? I told you, I can explain. I don't want your explanations. I want you to leave me alone. Jesus Christ, you're being impossible. This is exactly why. He cut himself off, but not before Elena heard the implication. Why what? She challenged. Why you cheated? Because I'm too difficult, too demanding, not fun enough? Marcus's silence was answer enough. The blonde had disappeared at some point. Smart. You know what? Elena's voice was shaking now, but not with anger anymore. With something raw. You're right. This is exactly why. Because I actually gave a damn. Because I tried. Because I thought what we had mattered. Elena, go back to your blonde, Marcus. I'm sure she's much easier to deal with. She turned and walked away before he could respond, before her composure could crack completely, before she could do something stupid like cry in front of him. Victor fell into step beside her without a word. Elena didn't stop until she'd pushed through the club's front doors and out into the street. The night air was cold, sharp enough to make her gasp. Or maybe that was just the adrenaline crash hitting. Well, she said to no one in particular, that went great. Could have gone worse. She glanced at Victor. He'd followed her outside, was standing a careful few feet away, giving her space but not leaving. Thank you, Elena said again. For the kiss. For the whatever that was with Marcus. You didn't have to do any of that. No, Victor agreed. I didn't. They stood in silence for a moment. The bass from the club was muffled out here, just a dull thud beneath the sounds of traffic and distant sirens. Normal city noise, the kind Elena usually found comforting. I should go, she said finally. Get a cab, go home, eat ice cream and watch terrible movies and pretend this night never happened. That's your plan? Do you have a better one? Victor's expression shifted into something Elena couldn't read. Several, but I don't think you want to hear them right now. Try me. He studied her for a long moment. You could start by not going straight home. Why not? Because your ex knows where you live, and he seems like the type who doesn't handle rejection well. A chill ran down Elena's spine that had nothing to do with the cold. You think he'd follow me? I think he's angry, embarrassed, and feeling like he lost control of a situation he thought he had handled. Men like that do stupid things. You got all that from 5 minutes of conversation? I'm good at reading people. Victor pulled out his phone, tapped something quickly. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from here, still open. Why don't we get you some caffeine, let you calm down, and then we'll get you a cab from there. It was reasonable, practical. And Elena was suddenly very aware that she was standing on a street corner in Manhattan at 11 p.m. with a stranger she'd kissed on impulse. I'm not trying anything, Victor said quietly. You've had a bad night. I'm offering coffee and conversation, nothing more. But if you'd rather I call you a cab right now, I'll do that. Elena looked back at the club entrance. Part of her wondered if Marcus would come bursting out any second, demanding she listen to him, making a scene. Coffee sounds good, she heard herself say. Victor nodded and started walking. Elena followed, still not entirely sure what she was doing, but grateful not to be alone just yet. The coffee shop was small, mostly empty at this hour, except for a couple of college students hunched over laptops and a tired-looking barista who perked up slightly when they walked in. What do you want? Victor asked. Anything. Latte. Whatever. He ordered 2 lattes and a black coffee for himself, paid before Elena could protest, and led her to a corner booth away from the windows. Elena wrapped her hands around the cup when it arrived, letting the heat seep into her fingers. She felt numb, shaky, like she'd just run a marathon. That bad? Victor asked. What? Whatever you're thinking about right now. Your expression suggests it's pretty bad. Elena laughed, though it came out more like a sob. I just blew up my entire relationship in the middle of a nightclub by kissing a stranger. So yeah, it's pretty bad. You didn't blow it up, he did. Long before tonight. How do you know? Because men who respect their partners don't put them in positions where they have to find out about infidelity by accident. Victor's voice was matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather. He wanted you to find out. Maybe not consciously, but on some level, he wanted the decision taken out of his hands. That's a depressing thought, but probably accurate. Elena took a sip of her latte. Too hot. She barely tasted it. You don't even know us. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know he grabbed your arm hard enough to leave marks. Victor gestured to her bicep, where Elena could already see the faint outline of finger-shaped bruises forming. I know he tried to make you feel guilty for his behavior. I know he called you dramatic and impossible when you called him out on his lies. He paused. That's enough. The certainty in his voice was unsettling, like he'd seen this exact scenario play out 100 times before. What do you do? Elena asked suddenly. For work, I mean. You seem very practiced at reading situations. Victor's mouth quirked. I'm a consultant. That's vague. It's meant to be. Secretive consultant. Great. I kissed a man of mystery. Regret it? The question hung between them. Elena thought about the kiss, about the way her whole body had responded to it, about how different it had felt from kissing Marcus. No, she admitted, which probably makes me a terrible person. Why? Because I just ended a 2-year relationship and I'm sitting here thinking about kissing someone else instead of being devastated. You are devastated, Victor said quietly. You're just angry enough right now that you haven't processed it yet. Give it 12 hours. The devastation will hit. He was probably right. Elena could feel it hovering at the edges, waiting to crash over her. The loss. The betrayal. The horrible, humiliating realization that she'd been living a lie for who knows how long. I hate this, she whispered. I know. They sat in silence for a while. Elena tried to organize her thoughts, figure out her next move. She'd have to get her stuff from Marcus's apartment. Had she left anything important there? Clothes, definitely. Her favorite coffee mug. That book she'd been reading? God, she'd have to see him again. Talk to him again. Figure out how to extricate herself from a relationship that had become woven into every part of her daily life. The thought was exhausting. Where do you live? Victor asked. Elena told him. He nodded slowly. That's not far from here. 20-minute cab ride, maybe less this time of night. Are you trying to get rid of me? I'm trying to make sure you get home safely. Right, because of Marcus. Elena had almost forgotten Victor's warning. You really think he'd do something? I think it's better to be cautious than sorry. Elena's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, already knowing who it would be. Marcus. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. Marcus. You can't just walk away like this. Marcus. Elena. Answer me. Marcus. Fine. Be childish. But this conversation isn't over. Her stomach turned. Victor had leaned back slightly, giving her privacy, but she could feel him watching. He's texting, she said unnecessarily. Blocking him is an option. I can't just block him. We have... Elena stopped. What did they have? Mutual friends, sure. Shared history. But nothing that actually required them to stay in contact. Nothing that meant she owed him accessibility. We have nothing, she finished quietly. We don't have anything. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Elena blocked Marcus's number with shaking fingers. Then, on impulse, she blocked him on social media too. Every platform. Severing the connection methodically, one app at a time. There, she said when she was done. That's done. Feel better? I feel like I'm going to throw up. Victor flagged down the barista and ordered Elena a water. She drank it in small sips, trying to calm her racing heart. Sorry, she said when she could breathe normally again. This is pathetic. You probably have better things to do than babysit a stranger having a breakdown. If I did, I'd be doing them. Why are you still here? The question came out sharper than she'd intended. Victor didn't seem offended. Because I don't think you should be alone right now, he said simply. And because I'm curious. About what? About what happens next. Elena laughed, brittle. What happens next is I go home, crawl into bed, and try to forget this night ever happened. Is that what you want? I want to not hurt anymore. I want to stop feeling humiliated and stupid and, her voice cracked. I want to stop feeling like I wasn't enough. Victor's expression softened almost imperceptibly. You were enough. You were more than enough. He just wasn't capable of seeing it. The kindness in his voice was going to undo her. Elena blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of this stranger who'd already seen her at her worst. I should go, she said, standing up too fast. The room tilted slightly. Victor's hand shot out, steadying her elbow. Easy. I'm fine. You're not. But that's okay. He pulled out his phone again. I'm calling you a cab. You're going to go home, lock your door, and try to get some sleep. Tomorrow you're going to wake up and start figuring out how to move forward. You sound very sure of that. I am. The cab arrived within minutes. Victor walked her out, opened the door for her, made sure she was settled before closing it. Thank you, Elena said through the open window. For everything. For the kiss. For the coffee. For not making me feel worse about myself than I already do. Victor's smile was small but genuine. Any time. The cab pulled away. Elena watched him disappear in the side mirror, standing alone on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching her leave. She should feel relieved, should feel grateful to be heading home, away from the drama, away from the humiliation. Instead, she felt like she'd just said goodbye to something important. The thought was ridiculous. She didn't know Victor, didn't know anything about him beyond the fact that he was a good kisser and had appeared at exactly the right moment to help her burn her life down. Elena leaned her head against the window, watching the city blur past. Manhattan at night was all lights and movement, people living their lives, having their own dramas. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably still at that club. Or maybe he'd gone home with the blonde. Maybe he was already forgetting about Elena, moving on to the next chapter of his life without a backward glance. The thought should have devastated her. It just made her tired. The cab dropped her off in front of her building. Elena paid, tipped too much because she couldn't be bothered to do math, and made her way inside. The elevator ride to her floor felt endless. Her apartment, when she finally stumbled through the door, was exactly as she'd left it. Evidence of her stupid, naive optimism was everywhere. The makeup she'd left scattered on the bathroom counter. The rejected outfit options draped over her bed. The note she'd written to herself, "Be spontaneous," still stuck to her mirror. Elena crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Then she sat on the edge of her bed and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. The tears came hard and fast, ugly crying that made her whole body shake. She cried for the time she'd wasted, for the future she'd imagined that would never happen, for the version of herself that had believed Marcus when he said he loved her. She cried until she had nothing left. Then she dragged herself into the shower, washing away the makeup and the club smell and the last physical traces of the night. When she finally crawled into bed, still damp, wearing her oldest, most comfortable pajamas, she felt hollow, scraped clean. Her phone lit up on the nightstand. For a second, her heart jumped. What if Marcus had found a way to contact her? What if he was outside right now, demanding to be let in? But it wasn't Marcus. It was an unknown number. Just checking you got home safely. V. Elena stared at the message. How had Victor gotten her number? She hadn't given it to him. As if reading her mind, another text came through. You gave it to the cab driver. He asked for a contact number in case of emergency. I may have memorized it. Sorry if that's creepy. Despite everything, Elena smiled. Not creepy. Thank you for checking. Get some sleep, Elena. She should put the phone down. Should block this number too, cut ties with the stranger who'd witnessed her meltdown. Should move forward with her life and try to forget this entire disastrous night. Instead, she saved his contact, just in case. Elena turned off the light and closed her eyes, trying not to think about anything. Not Marcus, not the club, not the kiss that had felt like falling. But even as sleep pulled her under, she could still feel the ghost of Victor's hand in her hair, could still taste him on her lips, could still hear his voice cutting through her panic with calm certainty. What happens next? He'd asked. Elena didn't know. But for the first time in 2 years, she thought maybe, just maybe, she wanted to find out. Elena woke to sunlight stabbing through her curtains and the immediate crushing memory of everything that had happened. For about 3 seconds, she thought maybe it had been a dream. Then she saw her dress crumpled on the floor, her phone still clutched in her hand, and Victor's last text still glowing on the screen. Her head pounded. Her eyes felt swollen. Her whole body ached like she'd been hit by a truck. Victor had been right about the devastation. It hit her in waves, each one worse than the last. She forced herself out of bed, stumbled to the kitchen, and stared at the coffee maker like it might have answers. It didn't. Nothing did. Her phone buzzed. Elena's stomach dropped before she remembered she'd blocked Marcus. The notification was from her best friend, Sophie. Brunch? I need details about last night. Marcus posted some cryptic shit on Instagram and then deleted it. Elena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should cancel, should stay home and wallow, should avoid human interaction until she felt less like a raw nerve. Meet you at the usual place in an hour, she typed instead. The shower helped. So did the makeup that covered the worst of the damage under her eyes. By the time Elena made it to the cafe where she and Sophie had been meeting for Sunday brunch for the past 3 years, she almost looked human. Sophie was already there, scrolling through her phone with a mimosa in front of her. She looked up when Elena approached, and her expression immediately shifted. "Oh, honey, what happened?" Elena sat down heavily. "I need you to not judge me." "When have I ever judged you?" "Last month when I bought those shoes I couldn't afford." "That was concern, not judgment. There's a difference." Sophie pushed the mimosa toward her. "Start talking." So Elena did. All of it. The club, Marcus and the blonde, the stranger she'd kissed, the confrontation, the texts. By the time she finished, Sophie's mimosa was empty, and her expression had gone from sympathetic to furious. "I'm going to kill him," Sophie said flatly. "I'm going to find Marcus, and I'm going to kill him slowly." "You can't kill him. You'll go to jail." "Worth it." Despite everything, Elena laughed. It felt good. Normal. "What I don't understand," Sophie continued, "is why you didn't call me. You were at a club 10 minutes from my apartment having a crisis and you called some random stranger instead?" "I didn't call him. I just grabbed him." "You grabbed a strange man in a club." "When you say it like that, it sounds bad." "It was bad, Elena. It was dangerous. He could have been anyone." Sophie paused. "Although based on the part where he made sure you got home safely and texted to check on you, he seems like less of a psycho than your actual boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend." "Thank God for that." Sophie signaled the waiter for another round. "So, what now? Are you going to see this Victor guy again?" "No. Why would I?" "Because you kissed him, and clearly you're still thinking about it based on the way you're blushing right now." Elena's hands flew to her cheeks. "I'm not. It was just adrenaline and anger. It didn't mean anything." "Uh-huh, sure." Sophie leaned forward. "Look, I'm not saying you need to jump into another relationship. You literally just ended one 12 hours ago. But maybe don't completely write off the guy who was nice to you during the worst night of your life. He was just being decent. Decent men are rare, trust me." Sophie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression darkened. "Speaking of indecent men, Marcus is texting me." "What? How?" "He's asking if I've talked to you. Says you won't answer his calls and he's worried." Sophie's fingers flew over her keyboard. "I'm telling him to fuck off." "Sophie." "Done. Blocked. He's dead to me." She looked up. "You should probably prepare yourself, though. He's going to try other people. Mutual friends. Maybe even your coworkers if he gets desperate enough." The thought made Elena's stomach turn. "I don't want to deal with this. I know. But ignoring it won't make it go away." Sophie reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You need to get ahead of it. Control the narrative before he does." "I don't even know what the narrative is. That he cheated and you left. Simple. Clean. True." Elena picked at her food. She'd ordered pancakes out of habit but couldn't make herself eat them. Everything tasted like cardboard. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. "This is getting ridiculous. We need to talk." M. "He got a new number," Elena said, showing Sophie the screen. "Block it." "What if he keeps getting new numbers?" "Then you keep blocking them." Sophie's voice was firm. "Don't engage, Elena. That's what he wants. He wants you to respond so he can explain, so he can manipulate you into giving him another chance. Don't give him that power. Elena blocked the number. Then another text came through, this time from a number she recognized. Marcus's work phone. You're being childish. I deserve a conversation at least. Oh my God, Sophie breathed. He's using his work phone? That's desperate. Or persistent. Same thing with men like him. Sophie grabbed Elena's phone. I'm handling this. Sophie, don't. But Sophie was already typing. This is Sophie. Elena doesn't want to talk to you. Stop contacting her, or I'll file a harassment complaint with your HR department. She has screenshots of everything. She hit send before Elena could stop her. You can't threaten him with HR, Elena hissed. Watch me. My cousin works in employment law. One phone call, and I can make his life very difficult. Sophie handed the phone back. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. The work number didn't text again. They sat in silence for a while, the brunch crowd buzzing around them. Elena felt disconnected from it all, like she was watching her life happen to someone else. I need to get my stuff from his place, she said finally. Not alone, you don't. I'm not bringing you into this. Too late. I'm already in it. Sophie pulled out her own phone. When do you want to go? I'm free all day. I don't even know if he's home. Text him from my phone. Tell him you're coming by to get your things. Elena didn't want to. Didn't want to coordinate with Marcus. Didn't want to see him. Didn't want to face the apartment they'd half shared for the past year. But Sophie was right. Avoiding it wouldn't make it disappear. She borrowed Sophie's phone and typed out a careful message. This is Elena. I'm coming by this afternoon to get my things. Please don't be there. The response came within seconds. We should talk when you come. No, just leave my stuff in a box and don't be there. Elena, this is ridiculous. What happened last night? Elena handed the phone back to Sophie. He's not going to make this easy. Then we'll make it fast. In and out, grab your stuff. Go. Sophie stood up, throwing cash on the table. Come on, let's do this now before you lose your nerve. The cab ride to Marcus's apartment felt surreal. Elena had made this trip hundreds of times, but always before it had felt like going towards something. Now it felt like a retreat. Sophie kept up a steady stream of conversation, probably trying to distract her. It mostly worked. Marcus's building looked the same, doorman, marble lobby, the plant by the elevator that was probably fake. Elena had once thought it was impressive. Now it just seemed cold. You okay? Sophie asked as they rode the elevator up. No. Good. That's honest. The apartment door was unlocked. Elena's stomach clenched as she pushed it open. Marcus was there, sitting on the couch like he'd been waiting. He stood up when they entered, his expression a careful mix of regret and frustration. I asked you not to be here, Elena said, and I decided we needed to talk. His eyes flicked to Sophie. Alone. Not happening, Sophie said cheerfully. Hi, Marcus. Nice to see you. Just kidding. It's not. His jaw tightened. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. Elena's my best friend, which means your mess is now my mess. Sophie settled herself by the door, arms crossed. We'll be quick. Where are her things? I didn't pack anything. I thought we could discuss this like adults. Adults who cheat don't get to lecture about maturity, Sophie shot back. Elena moved past them both, heading for the bedroom. She needed to get out of here. The apartment smelled like Marcus's cologne, and it was making her nauseous. Marcus followed her. Elena, please, just give me 5 minutes. No, you owe me that much. She spun around. I don't owe you anything. You're the one who lied. I didn't lie. You said you had to work. You were at a club with another woman. That's a lie. It's not what you think. Elena laughed, sharp and bitter. It never is it? That's what everyone says when they get caught. Sarah is just a coworker. We were celebrating closing a deal. It didn't mean anything. You had your hands all over her. We were dancing. You were about 2 seconds away from kissing her. Elena started pulling clothes out of the closet, shoving them into the bag she'd brought. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Fine. Yes. I was flirting with her, but nothing happened. Nothing was going to happen. Because I showed up. No, because I love you. The words should have meant something. Should have made her pause, made her reconsider. They just made her angry. You don't love me, Elena said quietly. You love the idea of me, the version of me that doesn't ask questions or make demands or expect you to actually show up. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Marcus, but we're done pretending otherwise. She moved to the bathroom, grabbing her toothbrush, her face wash, the expensive moisturizer she'd left here. Evidence of how much time she'd spent in this apartment, playing house with someone who'd never really wanted her there. When she came back out, Marcus was standing in the doorway, blocking her exit. "Move," she said. "Not until you listen to me. I've heard enough. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "You're right, it won't, because I'm not giving you another chance." His expression hardened. "You're really going to throw away 2 years over one night? You threw it away, not me." "Jesus, Elena, you kissed some random guy in front of everyone. How is that any different from what I did?" "Because I was single when I did it. You made that decision for both of us the second you decided Sarah was worth lying to me for." "I didn't sleep with her." "I don't care," Elena's voice rose. "Don't you get it? I don't care if you slept with her or not. You lied. You made me feel crazy for noticing you pulling away. You gaslit me for months and then expected me to smile and pretend everything was fine. I never—" "Yes, you did." Elena pushed past him, shouldering her bag. "You did it every time I asked where you were and you got defensive. Every time I mentioned you were distant and you told me I was being too sensitive. Every time I tried to talk about our relationship and you made it seem like I was the problem." She was in the living room now. Sophie was still by the door, watching with the intensity of someone ready to throw hands if necessary. Marcus followed, his voice taking on that placating tone he used when he wanted to win an argument. "Okay, you're right. I should have communicated better, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, or—" "I don't want to fix this. I want out." "You don't mean that." "Stop telling me what I mean." The frustration boiled over. "Stop telling me how I feel and what I think and what I should do." "I'm done, Marcus. We're done." Something in her voice must have finally convinced him. His expression shifted from conciliatory to cold. "Fine, if that's what you want." "It is." "Then I hope that guy from last night was worth it." Elena felt Sophie tense beside her, but she put a hand out, stopping her friend from intervening. "He was a stranger who was kinder to me in 5 minutes than you've been in months," Elena said evenly. "So yeah, he was worth it." She walked out, didn't look back, didn't give Marcus the satisfaction of seeing her cry. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. Sophie kept glancing at her like she was afraid Elena might shatter. "You okay?" she asked when they hit the lobby. "Ask me in a week." Outside, the afternoon sun was too bright. Elena fumbled for her sunglasses, grateful for something to hide behind. "That was intense," Sophie said carefully. "That was necessary." "Yeah, still intense, though." Sophie hailed a cab. "Come stay with me tonight. You shouldn't be alone." "I'll be fine." "It wasn't a request. You're staying with me. We'll order Thai food and watch terrible reality TV, and you can cry if you need to, or we can just sit in silence. Whatever you need." Elena didn't have the energy to argue. She let Sophie bundle her into the cab, let her take charge, let herself stop thinking for a few minutes. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but the preview caught her eye. "Victor, how are you holding up?" Elena stared at the message. She should be weirded out that this stranger was checking on her, should find it intrusive. Instead, she found it oddly comforting, surviving, barely. That counts. Does it? Some days survival is the only goal that matters. There was something in the way he phrased things, like he understood what it felt like to just be getting through the day. Sophie was watching her. "Who's that?" "Victor. The mystery man from last night. He's just checking in." "Uh-huh." Sophie's grin was knowing. "Just checking in. Sure. Don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just observing that a man you kissed 12 hours ago is texting you to make sure you're okay, and you're smiling while you text him back." Elena looked down at her phone. She was smiling. "Damn it. Thank you for checking. You didn't have to." "I know. Wanted to anyway." The cab dropped them at Sophie's apartment in Brooklyn. It was smaller than Marcus's place, messier, more lived in. Elena had always liked it better. Sophie ordered food while Elena collapsed on the couch. The adrenaline from the confrontation was wearing off, leaving her hollowed out and exhausted. "Can I ask you something?" Sophie said, returning with 2 beers. "Depends on the question." Why didn't you see it? The cheating, or the almost cheating, whatever it was. Elena took a long drink. I don't know. I saw pieces of it, I think, but I talked myself out of believing what I was seeing. Why? Because admitting he was lying meant admitting I'd wasted 2 years, meant admitting I'd been wrong about him, about us. She rubbed her eyes. It's easier to make excuses than to face that kind of failure. It's not your failure. It's his. Feels like mine, though. They sat in silence for a while. The TV was on, but Elena wasn't really watching it. Her mind kept circling back to the same questions. How long had Marcus been pulling away? When exactly had he stopped loving her, if he ever really had? Her phone buzzed again. Are you somewhere safe? Elena frowned at Victor's message. It was an odd question. I'm at my friend's place. Why? Just wondering. You seemed shaken last night, wanted to make sure you weren't alone. I'm fine. Sophie's taking care of me. Good. There was a pause, then another message. I'm probably overstepping, but if your ex contacts you again, don't engage. Men like him escalate when they don't get the response they want. He already tried. Multiple numbers. Sophie told him to back off. Did it work? For now. If it doesn't, let me know. Elena stared at the message. Let me know. Like Victor was offering to do something about it. Like he was invested in what happened to her beyond basic human decency. Why are you being so nice to me? The response took longer this time. Because someone should be. Something in Elena's chest tightened. She didn't know how to respond to that, so she didn't. The food arrived. Sophie set up their usual system. Containers spread across the coffee table. Netflix queued up, phones on silent. It was comforting in its familiarity. Can I tell you something without you freaking out? Elena said around a mouthful of pad thai. That's never a good start to a sentence. I keep thinking about him. Victor. The kissing stranger. Yeah. What about him? What? I don't know, just thinking. Elena set down her fork. He texted again, asked if I was safe, told me not to engage with Marcus. Sophie's eyebrows rose. That's either really sweet or really controlling. I think it's sweet, but I can't tell if my judgment is just broken right now. Your judgment isn't broken, you're just raw. There's a difference. Sophie paused. Do you want to see him again? I don't even know him. That's not what I asked. Elena pulled her knees up to her chest. Maybe. Is that crazy? I just ended a 2-year relationship and I'm already thinking about someone else? It's not crazy. It's human. Sophie grabbed another spring roll. Just maybe give yourself a minute before jumping into anything. Get your head straight. Figure out what you actually want. What if I don't know what I want? Then you figure that out first. They fell back into silence, but it was comfortable. Elena felt some of the tension in her shoulders ease. Her phone lit up again. Not Victor this time. A number she didn't recognize. You made a mistake. We both know you'll come back. Elena's blood ran cold. Marcus had gotten another number. Before she could respond, another message came through. You need me more than I need you. You'll figure that out soon enough. He's texting again, Elena said, her voice tight. Sophie grabbed the phone, read the messages. Her expression went from annoyed to furious. That's it. I'm calling my cousin. Sophie, no, this is harassment. You told him to stop and he's not stopping. She was already dialing. He doesn't get to do this. Elena listened as Sophie explained the situation to her cousin, a lawyer who specialized in employment cases. The conversation was brief and efficient. She says screenshot everything, Sophie reported. Every text, every call, every attempt at contact. Build a paper trail. If it continues, you can file for a restraining order. It won't come to that. Maybe not. But if it does, you'll be prepared. Elena took her phone back and did as instructed. Screenshot, block. Repeat. Another text came through almost immediately. A different number. I know you're reading these. You can't ignore me forever. Jesus Christ, Sophie muttered. How many phones does this guy have? Elena was wondering the same thing. This wasn't normal behavior. This was obsessive. Victor's warning echoed in her head. Men like him escalate when they don't get the response they want. She opened her conversation with Victor, hesitated, then typed. He won't stop texting. Different numbers every time. Is this normal? The response was immediate. No, that's fixation. Have you blocked all contact? Yes, he keeps finding new ways. Are you still at your friend's? Yes, stay there tonight. Don't go home alone. Elena's hands were shaking. Victor says I shouldn't go home alone. Sophie looked up from her own phone. Then you're staying here. We already established that. I can't let Marcus control my life. You're not. You're being smart. There's a difference. Sophie's voice was firm. Look, I know you don't want to believe Marcus would do something genuinely scary, but the guy you dated and the guy sending these texts, they might not be the same person. People get weird when they lose control. Elena knew she was right, had seen enough true crime documentaries to know how quickly things could escalate. But this was Marcus. Boring, predictable Marcus who complained about her leaving dishes in the sink and fell asleep watching sports highlights. Except maybe that Marcus had been a mask. Maybe the real Marcus was the one sending increasingly unhinged texts because she dared to leave. Her phone buzzed again. Elena's stomach dropped, but it was just Victor. I'm going to give you my actual number, not the one from last night. If you need anything, and I mean anything, call me. A new contact appeared in her phone. Victor Hale. A real name, a real number. More information than she'd had before. Why are you doing this? Because I recognize the pattern. And because I'd rather be wrong about your ex than watch you get hurt because you weren't careful. You don't even know me. I know enough. Elena set her phone down, feeling overwhelmed. This was too much. All of it. The breakup, the texts, the stranger who seemed way too invested in keeping her safe. I think I need to sleep, she said. Sophie nodded. Guest room's all yours. Clean sheets, extra blankets in the closet. Take whatever you need. Elena borrowed pajamas and brushed her teeth with the spare toothbrush Sophie kept under the sink. The guest room was small but comfortable, decorated with Sophie's usual chaotic energy. String lights, mismatched pillows, a bookshelf overflowing with thrillers and romance novels. She climbed into bed and tried not to think about anything. It didn't work. Her mind kept replaying the confrontation with Marcus. The way his expression had shifted when he realized she was serious. The cold anger in his texts afterward. Had she ever really known him, or had she just known the version he wanted her to see? Elena pulled out her phone one more time, scrolled through her blocked numbers. There were 6 now, 6 different attempts at contact in less than 24 hours. She opened her conversation with Victor. Thank you for caring. Even though you don't have to. Get some sleep, Elena. I'm trying. Try harder. Despite everything, she smiled. There was something grounding about his bluntness. No platitudes, no false comfort, just direct, honest communication. Good night, Victor. Good night. Elena set her phone on the nightstand and closed her eyes. Sleep didn't come easy, but eventually exhaustion won. She dreamed about the kiss, about strong hands in her hair and dark eyes that saw too much, about walking away from everything familiar into something unknown. When she woke up, sunlight was streaming through unfamiliar windows, and her phone was buzzing insistently. Elena grabbed it, half asleep, expecting another blocked number from Marcus. Instead, there were 7 missed calls from her office number and a text from her boss. Call me ASAP. We need to talk about Marcus. Her stomach dropped. What had he done? Elena's hand shook as she dialed her boss's number. It was barely 7 in the morning. Janet never called this early unless something was seriously wrong. The phone rang twice before Janet picked up. Elena, thank God. Where are you? I'm at a friend's place. What's going on? There was a pause, the kind that made Elena's stomach twist. Marcus showed up at the office this morning, early, before most people got in. What? Why would he? We don't even work at the same company. I know. That's why security called me. Janet's voice was tight. He was asking for you, said he needed to talk to you about something urgent. When the front desk told him you weren't in yet, he tried to go up to your floor anyway. Elena sat up, fully awake now. Did they let him? Hell no. Security stopped him at the elevator. But Elena, he got aggressive. Started yelling about how he had a right to see you, how you were being unreasonable. They had to escort him out. Oh my God. It gets worse. He left something for you. An envelope. Security screened it. It's just a letter. Nothing dangerous. But the fact that he came to your workplace... Janet trailed off. I need to ask. Is there something going on I should know about? Elena pressed her free hand against her forehead, trying to think. We broke up Saturday night. He's not taking it well. Not taking it well is sending sad texts. Showing up at your job at 6 in the morning is something else entirely. Janet's tone shifted, becoming more formal. I'm going to need you to file an incident report with HR, and I'm recommending we send a formal cease and desist letter to him through our legal team. Janet, that seems extreme. Elena, listen to me. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know what escalation looks like. This is escalation. She paused. Do you feel safe? The question hung in the air. Elena thought about the texts, the multiple phone numbers, Marcus blocking her exit at his apartment, and now this. I don't know, she admitted. Then we treat it like you're not. Come in today if you can. We'll meet with HR and legal. Get everything documented, and I'm going to recommend you take the rest of the week off as paid leave while we sort this out. I can't just... You can and you will. Your safety matters more than whatever projects you're working on. Janet's voice softened slightly. I know this is scary, but we'll handle it. That's what we're here for. Elena ended the call feeling numb. Sophie was standing in the doorway in an oversized t-shirt holding 2 mugs of coffee. I heard voices. Everything okay? Marcus showed up at my office this morning. Sophie nearly dropped the coffee. He what? Elena filled her in on the details. With each word, Sophie's expression grew darker. That's it. I'm coming with you today. You're not dealing with this alone. You have work. I'm calling in. This is more important. Sophie handed her the coffee. Drink this. Get dressed. We're going to your office, and we're going to make sure they understand how serious this is. An hour later, they were sitting in a conference room at Elena's company with Janet, the HR director, and a lawyer from the legal department. The envelope Marcus had left sat unopened in the middle of the table. Before we proceed, the lawyer said, I want to confirm a few details. Marcus Chen, you dated for 2 years, ended the relationship on Saturday night, and he's made multiple attempts at contact since then, despite being asked to stop. Yes. And you have documentation of these attempts? Elena pulled out her phone, showing them the screenshots Sophie had told her to save. 6 blocked numbers, dozens of texts ranging from pleading to angry to threatening. The HR director, a woman named Patricia, studied them with a grim expression. This is textbook harassment. Combined with this morning's incident, I think we have grounds for a formal restraining order. Isn't that too much? Elena heard the doubt in her own voice. I mean, he's just upset. He'll calm down. Patricia looked at her with something like pity. Elena, I understand the impulse to minimize this. You dated him for 2 years. You probably think you know him, think he'd never really hurt you. But the person sending these texts isn't the person you dated. This is someone who's lost control and is spiraling. The lawyer opened the envelope carefully, pulling out several handwritten pages. His expression grew more serious as he read. Ms. Cross, I'm going to need you to read this, but I want to warn you first, the content is concerning. Elena took the pages with shaking hands. Marcus's handwriting covered them, tight and angry. The letter started apologetic. How much he loved her, how sorry he was, how they could work through this. Standard breakup rhetoric. Then it shifted. He knew she'd been planning to leave for months. He'd seen the signs. The way she pulled away, the way she questioned him, the way she didn't trust him. She'd driven him to Sarah, really. If Elena had been more supportive, more understanding, more everything he needed, he never would have looked elsewhere. The words made her feel sick. Then came the accusations. She'd humiliated him in front of everyone, made him look like a fool, kissed some random stranger just to hurt him. Who was that guy anyway? How long had she been seeing him? Was that why she'd been so distant? Elena felt Sophie's hand grip hers under the table. The final page was worse. Marcus detailed everything he'd done for her over the past 2 years. Money he'd spent, time he'd invested, opportunities he'd passed up to be with her. She owed him a conversation at minimum, owed him the chance to fix this. And if she didn't give him that chance, she'd regret it. The letter ended with a promise. He wasn't going to let her throw away 2 years. He'd make her see reason, whatever it took. Jesus, Sophie whispered. The lawyer took the letter back. This is evidence. I'm making copies for the file and for the police report you're going to file. Police report? Elena's voice came out small. The last line is a threat. Maybe not explicit enough to charge him with anything, but combined with the pattern of harassment and today's incident, it's enough to get a restraining order. He looked at her seriously. Miss Cross, I need you to understand something. This doesn't get better on its own. Men who write letters like this, who show up at workplaces, who refuse to accept no for an answer, they escalate, always. Elena felt like she was going to be sick. Janet leaned forward. Here's what we're going to do. Patricia will help you file the police report today. Our legal team will draft a cease and desist letter. We're also going to flag your building security with Marcus's photo and description. He's not to be allowed access under any circumstances. What about my apartment? Elena asked. He knows where I live. Have you considered staying somewhere else for a few days? She's staying with me, Sophie said immediately. Patricia made a note. That's good. The more distance you can put between yourself and him right now, the better. Once the restraining order is in place, he'll be legally prohibited from contacting you or coming near you. If he violates it, he goes to jail. It all felt surreal, like this was happening to someone else. Elena had woken up 3 days ago in a relationship, planning a future with someone. Now she was sitting in a conference room discussing restraining orders and police reports. Her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it, but the preview made her look. Victor, how did it go with your boss? She'd forgotten she'd texted him earlier, telling him about the call. Worse than expected. He showed up at my office this morning. What? Security had to escort him out. He left a letter. It's not good. There was a longer pause this time. Where are you now? Still at my office, with HR and legal. And after? Filing a police report, apparently. Good. That's smart. Another pause. Do you need anything? Elena stared at the message. She'd known this man for 2 days. 2 days. And yet he kept checking in, kept offering help, kept seeming genuinely concerned about what happened to her. I don't even know anymore. Fair enough. Let me know when you're done with all the official stuff. I might have information that helps. What kind of information? The kind we should discuss in person. Before Elena could respond, Patricia was standing, gathering her materials. I've got the contact information for an officer who specializes in these cases. She's expecting your call. Should be able to get you in this afternoon. The rest of the morning blurred together. Forms to fill out, statements to give. The police station was exactly like the ones in movies. Fluorescent lights, uncomfortable chairs, the smell of bad coffee, and industrial cleaner. Officer Martinez was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She read through Marcus's letter without expression, then looked at Elena. How long were you together? 2 years. Has he ever been physically violent? No, he grabbed my arm Saturday night, but nothing. He grabbed you hard enough to leave bruises. Martinez gestured to the fading marks on Elena's bicep. That's assault. I don't want to press charges. I'm not suggesting you do. Not yet anyway. But I need you to understand that physical escalation often follows emotional escalation. He's already shown he's willing to put hands on you when he's angry. She pulled out a form. I'm going to help you file for a temporary restraining order. It'll be in effect immediately, and then you'll have a hearing in about 2 weeks to make it permanent. Sophie squeezed Elena's shoulder. Do it. So Elena did. More forms, more statements, more documentation of how her life had imploded in less than 72 hours. By the time they left the police station, it was after 2. Elena felt wrung out, like every emotion had been systematically extracted and examined. I need food, Sophie announced. Real food, not coffee shop pastries. There's a diner 2 blocks from here. They ended up in a booth that had probably looked dated in the 90s, ordering burgers and fries neither of them really wanted to eat. Elena's phone had been buzzing periodically. She'd been ignoring it, afraid to see what fresh hell was waiting. Finally, she looked. 3 texts from Victor. Still okay? Elena? Starting to worry. Check in when you can. She felt something warm in her chest. Stupid, probably. Dangerous, definitely. But warm nonetheless. Sorry. Just finished with the police. Got a restraining order? Good. Where are you? Getting food with Sophie. Stay in public places. Don't go anywhere alone. Sophie was watching her over the rim of her water glass. Mystery man again? He keeps checking in. So you've said. Multiple times. Sophie leaned back. Okay, I have to ask. What's his deal? Why is some guy you kissed once so invested in your safety? I don't know. Have you asked? Not directly. Maybe you should. Sophie picked at her fries. Look, I'm glad he's looking out for you, but I'm also your best friend, which means I'm obligated to point out when things are weird, and this is a little weird. I know. Do you trust him? Elena thought about the way Victor had stepped in when Marcus grabbed her, the way he'd made sure she got home safely, the way he kept checking in without being pushy or demanding. I think so. I mean, I don't know him well enough to really trust him, but my gut says he's genuine. Your gut also dated Marcus for 2 years. Fair point. Sophie's expression softened. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I just don't want you jumping from one bad situation into something that could be worse. I'm not jumping into anything. He's just being nice. Men aren't just nice, not to women who look like you, not without an agenda. God, you sound cynical. I sound experienced, Sophie sighed. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying. You're vulnerable right now, and vulnerable people make easy targets. Elena knew she was right. Knew she should probably put distance between herself and Victor, at least until she had her head straight. Knew getting involved with anyone right now was a terrible idea. But she also knew that every time her phone buzzed with a message from him, she felt a little less alone. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Elena's stomach clenched. Don't answer it, Sophie said immediately. What if it's the police or HR? They'd leave a voicemail. The ringing stopped. A few seconds later, a voicemail notification appeared. Elena put it on speaker. Marcus's voice filled the booth, tight with barely controlled anger. I know you're ignoring me. I know you think you can just walk away and pretend we never happened. But it doesn't work like that, Elena. You can't just erase 2 years. I don't care what your lawyers say or what restraining order you think you have. We need to talk, and we're going to talk, one way or another. The call ended. Sophie's face had gone pale. That sounded like a threat. Yeah. Elena's hands were shaking again. She saved the voicemail, forwarded it to Officer Martinez's email. He just violated the restraining order. It's not even been active for 2 hours. Call the cop, right now. Elena did. Martinez answered on the second ring, listened to the voicemail, and swore softly. Forward that to me. I'm sending a unit to his address right now. If he contacts you again, call 911 immediately. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Just call. Okay? Are you somewhere safe? I'm at a diner with my friend. Stay there. I'm going to have an officer swing by, just to check on you and get a statement about this call. 20 minutes. Elena set her phone down. Sophie was already texting someone furiously. My cousin is putting together an emergency filing. If Marcus keeps this up, we can get him arrested for contempt. She looked up. You're not going home. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until this is settled. I can't hide forever. You're not hiding. You're being smart. Sophie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. It's my roommate. Someone's been hanging around our building. A guy in a dark car, just sitting there for the past hour. Cold dread washed over Elena. What does he look like? She didn't get a good look, just said it was weird, the way he was watching the entrance. Elena pulled up Marcus's social media, not blocked yet, and found a recent photo, sent it to Sophie. Ask her if it's him. The response came back within seconds. Can't tell for sure, but the car matches his. Silver BMW. He knows where you live, Elena said. He followed us yesterday. Or he already knew. You've been there enough times. Sophie stood up. We need to leave. Now. The police are coming. Then we'll wait outside, near people, not sitting here like targets. They moved to the front of the diner where they could see the street through the windows. Elena's pulse was racing. This was insane. This was actually happening. Her phone buzzed. Victor. Just got a weird feeling. You said you're at a diner. Which one? Elena sent him the address. Stay there. I'm 15 minutes away. You don't need to. I know. Coming anyway. Sophie was watching the street, her expression tight. There's a silver BMW 2 blocks down. Can't see who's driving. We should call 911. And say what? Someone's parked on a public street? She had a point. Martinez had said to call if Marcus contacted her again. Sitting in a parked car wasn't contact. It was just creepy. The police arrived first. 2 officers, one male and one female, taking her statement about the voicemail. They radioed in the BMW's location. Elena watched through the window as another patrol car drove slowly past it. The BMW pulled away before they could reach it. "Coward," Sophie muttered. The officers took down all the information, added it to the report, and promised to increase patrols near both Elena's apartment and Sophie's. It felt inadequate, but it was something. Victor arrived just as the police were leaving. Elena saw him through the window, dark coat, purposeful stride, scanning the street like he was looking for threats. He spotted her through the glass, and something in his expression eased slightly. Sophie noticed her looking. "That him?" "Yeah." "He's hot." "That's not helpful." "I'm just observing facts." Victor pushed through the door, his attention immediately locking on Elena. "You okay?" "Define okay?" His mouth quirked, but his eyes were serious. He looked at Sophie. "You must be the friend." Sophie, the one keeping her sane. "Victor." He shook her hand, then turned back to Elena. "Can we talk?" "Privately?" Sophie raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "I'll be outside, making sure no silver BMWs appear." Once they were alone, relatively speaking, given the other diners, Victor sat down across from her. "I did some digging," he said without preamble. "On what?" "Marcus Chen, age 31, works in finance, lives in Manhattan, previously engaged to a woman named Jennifer Park." Elena blinked. "He was engaged?" 3 years ago. It ended badly. Restraining order. The whole thing." Victor's expression was grim. "She accused him of stalking, harassment, threatening behavior. Sound familiar?" How do you know all this?" "I have resources, and I had a feeling about him Saturday night." Victor leaned forward. "Elena, this isn't new behavior for him. You're not the first woman he's done this to, which means he knows exactly what he's doing and exactly how far he can push before facing consequences." Her mind was reeling. He never mentioned an engagement. Would you have dated him if he had? If he told you he had a restraining order against him from an ex? No. Of course not. Exactly. He hid it because he knew it would make him look bad. Victor pulled out his phone, showed her a screenshot. Jennifer Park filed a police report in 2021, multiple incidents of him showing up uninvited, sending threatening messages, following her. It took 8 months before he finally stopped. 8 months. Elena felt sick. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what you're dealing with. This isn't a guy who's just upset about a breakup. This is a pattern, and patterns don't break themselves." Victor's dark eyes held hers. "I'm telling you this because I think you're in danger, real danger, and I don't think the police are taking it seriously enough. They gave me a restraining order, which he violated within 2 hours. The restraining order is a piece of paper, Elena. It doesn't physically stop him from doing anything. It just gives the police grounds to arrest him after he's already done it." "So what am I supposed to do?" Victor was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "I can help, if you want." "Help how?" "I have resources the police don't. Connections, people who specialize in situations like this." He paused. "I can make sure you're safe while the legal system catches up." Elena studied him. He looked calm, controlled, but there was something underneath, something harder. "What do you do, Victor? Really?" "I told you, I'm a consultant." "That's not an answer." His smile was brief. "No, it's not." They sat in silence for a moment. Elena knew she should be more suspicious, should demand real answers before accepting help from someone she barely knew. But she was also exhausted and scared and running out of options. "What kind of help are you offering? Security? Protection? Someone watching your back until Marcus either gives up or gets arrested for violating the restraining order?" Victor's tone was matter of fact. "I'm not suggesting anything illegal, just making sure you're not alone and vulnerable. I'm staying with Sophie, who lives in a building with minimal security where Marcus has already been spotted. No offense to your friend, but she can't protect you if he decides to escalate." Sophie chose that moment to knock on the window, gesturing at her phone. Elena stepped outside. "My roommate says the BMW is back. Different street, but definitely watching the building." Sophie's voice was tight. "I don't think we can go home." Victor had followed them out. "You can't. Not tonight." "So what? We just wander the city?" Sophie's frustration was evident. No. You go somewhere he can't find you. Victor looked at Elena. I have a place. Secure building, doorman, cameras. Guest room. You can stay there until we figure this out. Absolutely not, Sophie said immediately. We're not going to some stranger's apartment. Then get a hotel. Use cash so there's no credit card trail. Don't tell anyone where you are. Turn off location services on your phones. Victor's tone was patient but firm. But you can't go back to your apartment. Not when he knows where it is and has already proven he'll show up. Elena looked at Sophie, who looked torn between protective instinct and practical reality. He's right, Elena said quietly. We can't go home. Not safely. Then we'll get a hotel, which we'll have to check into with ID that leaves a record. Victor pulled out his phone. Or you can trust me for one night. One night in a place where you'll be safe, and tomorrow we figure out next steps. Sophie looked at Elena. This is your call, but I'm not leaving you alone with him. I'm not asking you to, both of you. Guest room has 2 beds. Victor's expression was serious. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm trying to help. But if you'd rather take your chances elsewhere, that's your choice. Elena thought about Marcus sitting outside Sophie's building, about the voicemail, about the letter, about 8 months of harassment Jennifer Park had endured. Okay, she heard herself say. One night. Sophie looked like she wanted to argue, but didn't. Fine. One night. But I'm texting my cousin your address and checking in every hour. Fair enough. Victor gestured to a black car parked down the street. That's me. Let's go. As they walked toward it, Elena caught Sophie's expression. Worried, suspicious, protective. Elena felt all of those things too, but she also felt something else. Relief that someone was taking this seriously. Relief that she wasn't navigating this alone. Relief that, for tonight at least, she'd be somewhere Marcus couldn't find her. Whether that relief was justified or just another mistake in a series of them remained to be seen. But right now, getting into Victor's car felt like the safest option in a world where safe options had run out. Victor's apartment wasn't what Elena expected. She'd built up this image in her head during the silent car ride. Something sterile and minimal, maybe overly masculine. The kind of space that screamed bachelor with money and no sense of warmth. Instead, it was surprisingly normal. Lived in, even. Books on the shelves, a jacket draped over a chair, coffee mug on the counter. The kind of place that suggested someone actually spent time here rather than just sleeping between business trips. Sophie did a slow circle of the main room, taking everything in with the sharp eye of someone looking for red flags. Nice place. Thanks. Victor set his keys in a bowl by the door. Guest rooms down the hall, bathrooms attached. There's food in the fridge if you're hungry. We ate, Elena said, though that felt like hours ago now instead of just one. Right. Victor glanced at his watch. I need to make a few calls, get some things set up. You two should try to relax. Sophie waited until he disappeared into what looked like a home office before turning to Elena. Okay, so he's not an obvious serial killer. That's good. That's your bar? Not an obvious serial killer? Given the week you're having, I'm setting realistic standards. Sophie sat on the couch, pulled out her phone. I'm texting my cousin his address like I said, and I'm keeping my location sharing on. I don't think he's dangerous. You didn't think Marcus was dangerous either. The words stung because they were true. Elena had misjudged Marcus completely, had missed every warning sign until it was too late. What made her think her judgment was any better now? She sank into the chair across from Sophie, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright was finally draining away, leaving her hollow. I don't know what I'm doing, Elena admitted quietly. Join the club. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just making it up as we go and hoping we don't die. Sophie's expression softened. But for what it's worth, I think trusting Victor was the right call. For tonight, anyway. Yeah? He could have just let you handle this on your own. Instead, he did research on Marcus, showed up when you needed him, and offered you a safe place to stay without asking for anything in return. Sophie paused. That's either genuinely good or very calculated manipulation. Time will tell which. You're so reassuring. I'm realistic. There's a difference. Victor emerged from the office about 20 minutes later, looking slightly less tense than before. Everything okay? Define okay, Elena said for the second time that day. Fair point. He moved to the kitchen, started pulling out ingredients. You both should eat something real, not diner food that you picked at and didn't finish. How did you? You're running on stress and coffee. Trust me, I recognize the signs. Victor was already chopping vegetables with the kind of practiced efficiency that suggested he actually knew his way around a kitchen. Sit, talk, let me work. Sophie raised an eyebrow at Elena. Elena shrugged. They both sat at the kitchen counter and watched Victor cook, which felt surreal given everything else happening. So, Sophie said after a minute of silence, what exactly did you find out about Marcus, besides the ex-fiancé thing? Victor didn't look up from the pan. He has a pattern. Elena's not the first woman he's targeted, and Jennifer Park wasn't the first either. There was another one before her. Different city, similar behavior. Elena's stomach dropped. How many? That I found evidence of? 3, including you, but there could be more who didn't report or didn't leave a paper trail. Victor glanced up. Men like Marcus are good at finding vulnerable women, women who are kind, who want to see the best in people, who'll make excuses for bad behavior. I wasn't vulnerable when I met him. Maybe not. But he made you vulnerable over time. That's how it works. Small erosions, little comments that make you doubt yourself. Isolation from friends and family, making you dependent on his approval. Victor's voice was matter of fact, like he was describing a weather pattern instead of abuse. By the time you realized what was happening, you were already in too deep to see clearly. Sophie was nodding. That's exactly what happened. You stopped coming to brunch as often, stopped calling as much, always had excuses about why you couldn't make plans. He didn't like my friends, Elena said quietly. Said they were immature, that they distracted me from what was important. And you believed him because he made it sound reasonable. Victor set plates in front of them. Pasta, simple, but good. That's the trick. Abusers don't start with the crazy. They start with logic, with concern, with love even. By the time the mask slips, you're already committed to the fiction. Elena picked at her food. Everything Victor was saying made sense, but accepting it meant accepting that her entire relationship had been a lie. That Marcus had never really loved her, had just been playing a part. How do you know all this? She asked. Victor was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. I've seen it before. Multiple times. Part of what I do involves identifying patterns of behavior, predicting escalation, reading people. That's still not really an answer about what you do. No, he agreed. It's not. Sophie was watching this exchange with interest. You know, for someone who's being deliberately vague about his job, you seem to know a suspicious amount about stalking and harassment patterns. Is that a question or an accusation? Both. Victor's smile was brief. I work in risk assessment and management, corporate security mostly. Part of that involves threat analysis, identifying potential dangers before they become actual problems. And you're doing that for Elena because I can, and because nobody else seems to be taking this seriously enough. The police gave her a restraining order, which Marcus violated immediately. The restraining order is reactive, not proactive. It tells the police what to do after he's already crossed a line, but it doesn't actually stop him from crossing it. Victor leaned against the counter. I'm offering a different approach, one that prevents the problem instead of just documenting it. Elena set down her fork. What does that mean exactly? What's your different approach? Surveillance, documentation, making it clear to Marcus that he's being watched, that any move he makes will be seen and recorded. Victor's expression was calm, but his eyes were hard. Men like him thrive on the illusion of power. They think they're smarter than everyone else, think they can get away with it. Taking that illusion away usually makes them back down. And if it doesn't, then we have evidence of every violation, every threat, every time he steps out of line, which means when the police finally decide to act, they'll have enough to put him away. Victor paused. But it won't come to that, trust me. There was something in the way he said it, a certainty that went beyond optimism into something darker. You've done this before, Elena said. It wasn't a question. More times than I'd like to count. Sophie was still watching Victor with a mix of suspicion and reluctant approval. Okay, so you're either a really good guy with a sketchy job or a really sketchy guy pretending to be good. I genuinely can't tell which. That's probably smart. I'm going to choose to trust you for tonight. But if anything happens to her, I will find a way to destroy your life. Clear? Crystal. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The pasta was actually good, and Elena found herself eating more than she'd expected. Her body needed fuel even if her mind was too chaotic to appreciate it. Her phone buzzed. She tensed automatically, but it was just Officer Martinez. Attempted contact with Marcus Chen. He wasn't home. Left notice about restraining order violation. We'll try again tomorrow. Stay safe. Elena showed the message to Victor, who read it and nodded. Good. They're following protocol. Will that be enough, the notice? No, but it creates a record, shows he was warned. Victor took their empty plates to the sink. The next violation, they can arrest him. That's when things usually start to shift. Sophie yawned, trying to hide it behind her hand. What time is it? Almost 9. Feels like midnight. She stood, stretching. I think I'm going to shower and try to sleep. My brain is fried. After Sophie disappeared into the guest room, Elena found herself alone with Victor. The apartment felt quieter suddenly, more intimate. You should rest too, Victor said. I'm not tired. It was a lie. She was exhausted, but she was also wired, her mind refusing to settle. Then at least sit somewhere comfortable instead of perching on that stool like you're ready to run. Elena hadn't realized she was doing that. She moved to the couch, and after a moment, Victor joined her, keeping a careful distance. Can I ask you something? Elena said. You can ask. I might not answer. Why are you really doing this? And don't say because you can. There has to be more to it than that. Victor was quiet for a long time. Elena thought maybe he wasn't going to answer at all. I had a sister, he said finally. Younger. She got involved with someone like Marcus. Same pattern, same escalation. By the time my family realized how bad it was, she was too deep in it to ask for help. Elena's chest tightened. What happened? She got out eventually, but it took years, and it cost her things she'll never get back. Confidence, trust, the ability to feel safe in her own life. Victor's voice was carefully controlled. I learned everything I could about how these situations work, how to identify them early, how to intervene effectively, how to actually help instead of just standing by feeling helpless. Is she okay now? She's alive. She's safe. Whether she's okay is more complicated. He looked at Elena. The point is, I know what it looks like when someone's in danger, and I know what happens when people who could help decide it's not their problem. So I'm your good deed. You're someone who needs help. I'm someone who can provide it. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that, but it felt more complicated. Everything about Victor felt more complicated. The way he looked at her, the way he'd kissed her Saturday night, the way he kept showing up exactly when she needed him. I should let you rest, Victor said, standing. The guest room has everything you need. Lock the door if it makes you feel safer. Victor, he paused. Thank you for all of this. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. I know. His expression softened slightly. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow we start fixing this. After he disappeared into his own room, Elena sat alone in the quiet apartment. Her phone was on the coffee table, screen dark. No new messages. No threats. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe without waiting for the next crisis. She checked on Sophie, who was already asleep, sprawled across one of the beds in the guest room with her phone clutched in one hand. Elena grabbed a blanket from the closet and covered her friend, feeling a rush of gratitude. Sophie had dropped everything to help her, had stood by her through every horrible moment without question. The second bed looked inviting, but Elena knew she wouldn't sleep yet. Her mind was still racing, replaying conversations, analyzing everything. She found herself thinking about what Victor had said, about Marcus making her vulnerable over time, about the pattern. When had it started, really? The comments about her friends being immature, the suggestions that she was too sensitive, too emotional, the way he'd slowly convinced her that her instincts were wrong, that she was seeing problems that didn't exist. Elena pulled out her phone and opened her photos, scrolled back through months of images. She and Marcus at restaurants, on trips, at events. In the early photos, she was smiling, really smiling, not the tight, anxious expression she'd worn in the later ones. When had that changed? When had she stopped looking happy and started looking like she was trying to prove she was happy? 6 months ago, maybe. Around the time Marcus had started working with Sarah. Around the time the canceled plans and late nights had become routine. Had he been seeing her that long? Or had Sarah just been the most recent one? Elena's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart jumped. She almost didn't open it, almost woke Victor, but something made her look. It wasn't Marcus. Ms. Cross, this is Jennifer Park. Officer Martinez gave me your information. I heard about what's happening. I'm sorry. I know what you're going through. If you want to talk, I'm here. Elena stared at the message. Jennifer Park, the ex-fiancée, the woman who'd survived 8 months of Marcus's harassment. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She should probably wait until morning. Should think about whether talking to Jennifer was a good idea or just going to make everything worse. But she was tired of waiting, tired of not having answers. Thank you for reaching out. How did you finally get him to stop? The response came quickly, like Jennifer had been waiting. I didn't. He just moved on to someone else. You probably. I'm sorry. The words hit like a punch. So there's no way to make him stop? Not that I found. Restraining order helped some. But mostly I just had to wait for him to lose interest, which took months. How did you survive it? Badly. I moved twice, changed my number 4 times, stopped going places I knew he'd look for me. It was like being in prison, except I was the one who hadn't done anything wrong. Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. 8 months. Jennifer had endured this for 8 months before Marcus had finally moved on. To her. How long before he moved on again? And what would he do to the next woman? How many times would this pattern repeat? I don't want to live like that, Elena typed. Then don't. Get out now. Move if you have to. Change everything. Don't wait for it to get better because it won't. Not with him. Did you ever think about going to the police? I did go to the police. Multiple times. They said they couldn't do anything unless he actually hurt me. By the time they took it seriously, I'd already lost my job, my apartment, most of my friends. Don't wait for the system to save you. Save yourself. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. Jennifer shared details that made Elena's stomach turn. Times Marcus had shown up at her work, her gym, her parents' house, messages he'd sent alternating between love and rage. The way he'd managed to convince mutual friends that Jennifer was being dramatic, that she was the crazy one. It was like reading a script of her own future if she didn't act. There's someone helping me, Elena finally admitted. Someone who says he can make Marcus back off. Be careful. A lot of people say they can help. Most of them just make it worse. He seems to know what he's doing, or he seems to know what to say to make you trust him. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just saying be careful who you trust when you're vulnerable. That's when people take advantage. Elena thought about Victor, about the way he'd kissed her in the club, the way he kept checking on her, the way he'd brought her to his apartment. Was Sophie right to be suspicious? Was Jennifer? I'll be careful, she typed. Good. And Elena? Whatever you do, don't try to reason with Marcus. Don't try to explain or justify or make him understand. Men like him don't work that way. They only understand power and consequences. Everything else is just noise. After Jennifer said goodnight, Elena sat in the dark guest room, listening to Sophie's steady breathing and thinking about power and consequences. Marcus had all the power right now. He knew where she lived, where she worked, who her friends were. He could show up anywhere, anytime, and all she could do was react. The restraining order was supposed to change that. But Marcus had already proven it wouldn't stop him, so what would? Elena thought about Victor's offer. Surveillance, documentation, making Marcus understand he was being watched. It sounded good, logical, safe. But Jennifer's warning echoed in her head. A lot of people say they can help. Was Victor one of them? Or was he something else entirely? Elena finally climbed into bed around midnight, her mind still spinning. Sleep came in fits and starts, broken by dreams of being chased through empty streets while someone watched from the shadows. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came crashing back. Sophie was already up, sitting at the kitchen counter with a mug and her laptop. Victor was at the stove again, making what looked like eggs. Morning, he said when he noticed Elena. Sleep okay? Not really. Fair enough. Coffee? Please. Elena accepted the mug gratefully, wrapping her hands around it for warmth. She felt fragile this morning, like she might shatter if someone looked at her wrong. I've been doing research, Sophie announced, on restraining orders and stalking laws. Did you know that in New York, if someone violates a restraining order 3 times, it becomes a felony? Marcus has already violated it twice, Elena said. The texts and the voicemail. Exactly. One more time and he's looking at serious jail time. Sophie looked satisfied. So we just need to wait for him to screw up again. That's a depressing strategy. It's a realistic one. Victor set plates of food in front of them. The question is whether he'll screw up in a way that's documented or in a way that's dangerous. Big difference. So what's your plan? Sophie asked. You said you had resources. I've hired a private security firm. They're already watching Marcus's apartment and his office. If he leaves either location, they'll follow him and document where he goes. Victor pulled out his phone, showed them a map with several pins. These are the locations we're monitoring. Your apartment, Sophie's apartment, Elena's office. If he shows up at any of them, we'll know immediately. Elena stared at the map. That must cost a fortune. It's handled. Victor, it's handled, he repeated firmly. Money isn't the issue. Your safety is. Sophie was studying the map. What happens if he shows up? We document it. Call the police. Get him arrested for violating the restraining order. Victor zoomed in on one of the pins. But more importantly, we make sure Elena isn't there when it happens. That's the key. He can show up all he wants, but if she's not there, he can't hurt her. So I'm just supposed to hide indefinitely? No. You're supposed to be strategic about where you go and when, at least until he either gives up or gets arrested. Victor's expression was serious. I know it's not ideal. I know it feels like giving up your freedom, but it's temporary. This situation won't last forever. Jennifer Park says it lasted 8 months for her. Victor's expression flickered. You talked to Jennifer? She reached out last night, wanted to warn me. Elena took a sip of coffee. She said there's no way to make him stop, that I should just move and start over somewhere he can't find me. That's one approach. Not the one I'd recommend, but it is an option. What would you recommend? Victor was quiet for a moment. Controlled escalation. What does that mean? It means we force the situation to a crisis point on our terms instead of his. We document everything, build an airtight case, and then we present it all to the police and the DA in a way that makes it impossible for them to ignore. He pulled up another screen on his phone. I have contacts in the legal system, people who can make sure this gets taken seriously. Sophie's eyes narrowed. What kind of contacts? The useful kind. That's not an answer. No, it's not. They ate in tense silence. Elena could feel Sophie's suspicion radiating across the table, could see Victor's careful neutrality. She was caught between them, between trust and caution, between the need for help and the fear of depending on the wrong person. Her phone rang. Officer Martinez. Ms. Cross, we attempted to serve Marcus Chen with notice of the restraining order violation at his residence and workplace. He's not at either location. His coworkers say he called in sick. Any idea where else he might be? Elena's blood ran cold. No. If he contacts you or shows up anywhere, call 911 immediately. Don't engage, don't try to handle it yourself. Just call. After hanging up, Elena relayed the information to Victor and Sophie. He's not at work or home, Sophie said. So where is he? Victor was already on his phone. Calling the security team? He stepped away, voice low and urgent. Sophie grabbed Elena's hand. Hey, look at me. You're okay. You're safe here. For how long? I can't hide forever. You're not hiding. You're being smart while the system catches up. But Sophie's voice lacked conviction. She was scared too. Victor returned. Security confirms he left his apartment around 6 this morning. They followed him for about 20 minutes before losing him in traffic. Lost him? Elena's voice came out higher than she intended. How do you lose someone? He was watching for a tail, took evasive action, which means he knows he's being watched. Victor's expression was grim. This is escalation. He's planning something. What kind of something? Nothing good? Elena's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. You think you can hide from me? You think some stranger can protect you? I know exactly where you are. Her hand started shaking. Victor took the phone, read the message, and immediately made a call. We need to move, he said into the phone. Now. Yes, I'm sure. He hung up and looked at Elena and Sophie. Pack your things. We're leaving in 5 minutes. Leaving to go where? Sophie demanded. Somewhere safer, somewhere he won't think to look. He says he knows where we are. He's bluffing. This building is secure. There's no way he got in or knows the apartment number. He's trying to scare you. Victor was already moving, grabbing bags, checking windows. But we're not taking chances. Let's go. Elena found herself moving on autopilot, shoving clothes into her bag, following Victor's clipped instructions. Sophie was right behind her, phone pressed to her ear as she updated her cousin. They were in the elevator when Elena finally found her voice. Where are we going? A safe house, corporate property, off the grid. He can't track you there. This is insane. This is necessary. Victor's jaw was tight. Trust me. The garage was underground, dimly lit. Victor led them to a different car than yesterday, a dark SUV with tinted windows. Get in. Stay low. Elena climbed into the back seat, Sophie beside her. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. This was real. This was actually happening. Marcus wasn't just sending angry texts anymore. He was hunting her. The SUV pulled out of the garage and into morning traffic. Elena watched the city pass by through tinted windows, feeling like she was watching her life happen to someone else. Victor's phone rang. He answered on speaker. Sir, we have a situation. Marcus Chen is at Elena Cross's apartment building. He's trying to get past security. Elena's stomach dropped. Are the police en route? Victor asked. Yes, sir. ETA 4 minutes. Good. Make sure they get him on camera trying to gain access. I want every second documented. They drove in silence, listening to updates from the security team. Marcus arguing with the doorman. Marcus trying to slip past when someone else entered. Marcus finally being confronted by police. They're arresting him, the voice on the phone reported. Violation of restraining order. He's resisting. Elena closed her eyes. This should feel like relief, like victory. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something worse. Third violation, Sophie said quietly. That makes it a felony, right? If they charge him with all three, Victor was watching the road. Which they should. Now we wait and see if the DA decides to prosecute. And if they don't, then we have other options. Elena wanted to ask what those options were, wanted to demand real answers about who Victor was and what he was really capable of, wanted to know if she was trading one dangerous situation for another. But she was too tired, too scared, too far past the point of no return. So she just sat in the back of the SUV, watching the city disappear behind them, and hoped to hell she was making the right choice. The safe house was nothing like Victor's apartment. It sat 40 minutes outside the city, tucked behind a gate that required 3 different security codes to open. The building itself was nondescript, could have been corporate housing or a storage facility or anything designed to be forgotten the moment you looked away from it. Inside, it was Spartan, functional furniture, no personal touches, the kind of place that existed purely for purpose rather than comfort. Elena set her bag down and felt the weight of the past few days crash over her all at once. I need to sit, she said, and her legs gave out before she made it to the couch. Sophie caught her, eased her down. You're okay. Just breathe. Victor was on his phone in the corner, having a low conversation with someone. Elena caught fragments. Yes, 3 violations. They're holding him now. I need confirmation on the charges. Is he in jail? Elena asked when he hung up. For now. They're processing him. Bail hearing is tomorrow morning. Victor sat across from them. The DA is reviewing all 3 violations. If they decide to prosecute as a felony, he's looking at real time. How much time? Up to 7 years. More likely 2 or 3 if he pleads out. 2 or 3 years felt both like forever, and not nearly long enough. What happened after that? Did the pattern just start over? Did Marcus come out angrier, more dangerous, ready to finish what he'd started? I talked to Jennifer this morning, Victor continued. After you mentioned her last night, I reached out. She's willing to testify if it goes to trial. About her experience with Marcus, the pattern of behavior. She'd do that? Elena had only exchanged a few texts with the woman. The idea that Jennifer would put herself through a trial, would relive her own trauma to help a stranger, felt overwhelming. She said she wished someone had warned her before it got bad. This is her chance to warn the next person, to make sure there isn't a next person. Victor's expression was serious. But it only matters if the DA actually prosecutes. And that's not guaranteed. Why not? They have 3 violations. They have his letter. They have the voicemail. They also have a defense attorney who will argue that Marcus was emotional after a breakup, that he never actually threatened violence, that he's a productive member of society who made some poor choices. Victor's tone was matter of fact. The system doesn't always work the way it should, especially not for cases like this. Sophie had been quiet, but now she spoke up. So what's our backup plan? We make sure the DA knows this is being watched, that there are multiple witnesses, that we have documentation of everything, that if they don't prosecute now, they'll be answering questions later when something worse happens. Victor pulled out his phone again. I have a contact at the Times, journalist who covers legal issues. She's interested in the story. Elena's stomach twisted. You want to go public? I want to apply pressure. If this becomes a story about the system failing to protect women from stalkers, the DA's office suddenly has a lot more incentive to take it seriously. He looked at her steadily. But I won't do it without your permission. It's your life, your choice. What would that mean? Interviews, my name in the paper? Probably. And your story, what Marcus did, how the system responded. Victor's voice was gentle. I know it's not ideal, but sometimes exposure is the best protection. Elena thought about it, about Marcus reading her name in the newspaper, seeing her story told publicly, about strangers knowing the worst moments of her life. But she also thought about the next woman, about Jennifer saying she wished someone had warned her. Do it, she said. Whatever it takes to make sure he doesn't do this to anyone else. Sophie squeezed her hand. You sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Victor made the call. Elena half listened as he outlined the situation to the journalist, his voice calm and factual. When he hung up, he looked almost apologetic. She wants to interview you tomorrow, if you're willing. Tomorrow? The word came out strangled. The bail hearing is tomorrow morning. If we run the story the same day, it creates maximum pressure. The DA sees it, the judge sees it. Everyone knows this case is being watched. Victor paused. But if you need more time, No. Tomorrow is fine. Elena felt numb. What do I say? In the interview? The truth. What happened? How you felt? What you need. She'll guide you. Victor's expression softened. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be there if you want. Why? The question burst out before Elena could stop it. Why are you doing all this? The security, the safe house, the journalist? Why do you care this much about what happens to me? Victor was quiet for a long moment. Sophie was watching him too, her expression sharp and assessing. I told you about my sister, he said finally. What I didn't tell you is that the man who hurt her walked away. No charges, no consequences. He convinced everyone she was exaggerating, that she was unstable, that he was the real victim. His jaw tightened. I watched her lose everything while he lost nothing, and I decided I was never going to watch that happen again, if I could help it. So I'm your redemption project. You're someone who deserves better than what you're getting from the system. Victor's dark eyes met hers. And yes, maybe helping you helps me deal with the fact that I couldn't help her, but that doesn't make it less real. There was something raw in his voice, something that suggested this wasn't just about pattern recognition or professional expertise. It was personal. Okay, Elena said quietly. Then let's do it, all of it. The interview, the pressure, whatever it takes. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Victor worked from the safe house, making calls and sending emails, building what he called the case file. Sophie tried to work remotely but kept getting distracted, checking news updates about Marcus's arrest. Elena sat on the couch and tried to process everything. In less than a week, her entire life had imploded. No relationship, no sense of safety, hiding in a safe house from a man she'd once thought she loved. The worst part was how stupid she felt. How had she not seen this coming? All the signs had been there, the jealousy, the control, the way Marcus had slowly isolated her from everything that made her feel strong. She'd told herself it was love, that his intensity meant he cared, that his possessiveness was romantic. What a joke. Her phone buzzed. Text from Janet, her boss. HR wants to meet with you tomorrow. Can you make it in? Lots of good news. Elena typed back, I'm at a safe location outside the city. Can we do it over video? Absolutely. 10 a.m. work? Perfect. At least work was still there. At least some part of her life was still intact. That night, Sophie made dinner from whatever was stocked in the safe house kitchen. It was surprisingly good. Pasta with vegetables, garlic bread, nothing fancy but warm and comforting. "You're better at this than I thought," Elena said. "My one domestic skill, cooking. Everything else is a disaster." Sophie grinned. "You should see my apartment." "Oh wait, you can't because we're hiding from your psycho ex." Despite everything, Elena laughed. It felt good. Normal. Victor joined them, though he mostly pushed food around his plate while continuing to monitor his phone. "You need to eat," Sophie told him. "You're not going to be useful to anyone if you collapse." "I'm fine." "You're running on coffee and stubbornness. Eat." He ate. Elena watched the exchange with interest. Sophie had gone from suspicious of Victor to bossy in less than 24 hours. That felt like approval in Sophie's language. After dinner, Elena excused herself and called her parents. She'd been avoiding them, knowing they'd worry, but she couldn't put it off any longer. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Elena, sweetheart, we've been trying to reach you." "I know, I'm sorry, things have been complicated." "Are you okay? You sound strange." Elena gave them the abbreviated version. Breakup with Marcus. Some trouble afterward. Staying with friends for a few days. She left out the restraining order, the arrest, the safe house. They'd just worry, and there was nothing they could do from 3 states away anyway. "Do you need us to come there?" her father asked, his voice tight with concern. "No, I'm fine, really. I just wanted to let you know I'm okay." "You don't sound okay." "I will be, soon." After she hung up, Elena felt the tears she'd been holding back finally break through. She cried quietly in the bathroom, not wanting Sophie or Victor to hear, not wanting to be weak anymore. But maybe crying wasn't weakness. Maybe it was just human. When she emerged, red-eyed but composed, Victor was alone in the living room. Sophie had retreated to the bedroom, probably giving them space deliberately. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there." Elena sat on the opposite end of the couch. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "That kiss, Saturday night. Was that just you helping me out, or was it something else?" Victor's expression was unreadable. "Does it matter?" "It might." He was quiet for a moment, considering. "It started as helping you, but it became something else pretty quickly." "What kind of something?" "The kind I shouldn't be thinking about while you're going through all this." Victor's voice was careful. "You're vulnerable right now. I'm not going to take advantage of that." "What if I don't think it's taking advantage?" "Elena, I'm not saying I want to jump into something. I'm saying I want to know if what I felt was real or just adrenaline and desperation." She looked at him directly. "Because it felt real. And I need to know if I'm completely losing my ability to judge people or if my instincts were actually right for once." Victor held her gaze. "It was real, at least for me." "And now?" "Now we deal with Marcus. We get you safe. We make sure you're okay." He paused. "And then, if you still want to have this conversation, we'll have it, but not while you're running for your life." It was the right answer. The mature, responsible answer. Elena hated it, but she also knew he was right. "Okay," she said. "After Marcus. We'll figure out what this is." Deal. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just existing in the same space without needing to fill it with words. It felt easy in a way things with Marcus never had. No performance, no trying to be someone she wasn't, just being. The next morning, Elena woke up early to prepare for the video call with HR. She tried to make herself look professional, which was challenging given the circumstances, but she managed. Janet and Patricia appeared on screen at exactly 10. "Elena, good to see you." Janet's smile was warm. "First, how are you holding up?" "I'm okay. Safe. Getting through it." "Good. We wanted to update you on what's happening from our end." Patricia took over. "Marcus's employer has been notified about his arrest and the restraining order. They've placed him on administrative leave pending the outcome of the criminal case." "They actually did something?" "We made it very clear that if they didn't, we'd be filing a lawsuit for allowing him access to our building despite the restraining order." Patricia looked satisfied. "They decided cooperation was in their best interest. Additionally," Janet continued, "we've implemented new security protocols for the building. Marcus's photo has been distributed to all security personnel at our company and at 3 neighboring buildings. If he shows up anywhere in the area, police will be called immediately. Elena felt something in her chest ease slightly. Thank you, both of you. You didn't have to do all this. Yes, we did, Janet said firmly. You're our employee and our responsibility. Making sure you're safe is part of that. After the call ended, Elena felt lighter than she had in days. People were taking this seriously. The system was actually working, at least in some ways. The interview with the journalist happened that afternoon. Her name was Rachel Kim, and she had kind eyes and a direct manner that put Elena somewhat at ease. I'm going to record this, Rachel said, setting up her equipment, but nothing goes in the story without your approval. This is your narrative. You're in control. Victor sat nearby, not participating, but present. A silent reminder that Elena wasn't doing this alone. Rachel started with basic questions. How long had Elena dated Marcus? What was the relationship like? When did she first notice problems? Then they got to the harder parts. The night at the club. The escalation afterward. The letter. The arrest. Elena found herself telling details she hadn't even told Sophie. How Marcus had convinced her that her instincts were wrong. How he'd isolated her from friends so gradually she hadn't noticed until it was done. How he'd made her feel like she was crazy for being concerned. That's gaslighting, Rachel said quietly. Classic abuse tactic. I didn't think I was being abused. He never hit me, never screamed at me. I thought abuse had to be obvious. That's a common misconception. Emotional and psychological abuse can be just as damaging as physical, sometimes more so because it's harder to identify and harder to prove. Rachel made a note. How do you feel about him being arrested? Relieved, scared, worried it won't be enough. Elena paused. Mostly I feel angry that it got this far, that I had to lose so much before anyone took it seriously. What do you want people to understand about situations like yours? Elena thought about it. About Jennifer Park and the 2 women before her. About whoever might come after if this didn't stop. I want them to understand that it's not always obvious. That abusers don't look like monsters. They look normal. They're charming and successful and good at convincing everyone that they're the reasonable one. She met Rachel's eyes. And I want them to understand that if someone tells you they're scared, believe them. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for it to get worse. Just believe them. Rachel stopped recording. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing it. After she left, Elena felt drained but also oddly energized, like she'd taken back some control by telling her story on her own terms. You did good, Victor said. When will it run? Tomorrow morning, online tonight. The article went live at 8 p.m. Elena read it 3 times, looking for anything that felt wrong or invasive. But Rachel had kept her promise. It was Elena's story, told the way Elena had told it. The headline read, When the System Fails, One Woman's Fight Against a Serial Stalker. By 9 p.m., it had been shared 2,000 times. By 10, it was trending on social media. By midnight, 3 other news outlets had picked it up. Elena's phone was flooded with messages. Old friends she hadn't spoken to in months, offering support. Strangers sharing their own stories. A few trolls saying she was overreacting, but mostly just an outpouring of solidarity. This is insane, Sophie said, scrolling through the responses. You're everywhere. Is that good or bad? Good, definitely good. Victor showed her his phone. The DA's office just released a statement. They're prosecuting all 3 violations as felonies. Maximum charges. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. They're actually doing it. They didn't have a choice. Not with this much attention. Victor's smile was grim. Public pressure works. The bail hearing happened the next morning. Elena watched via live stream from the safe house, her stomach in knots. Marcus looked terrible. Rumpled suit, dark circles under his eyes. When the judge read the charges, his face went pale. His lawyer argued for reasonable bail. Work obligations, ties to the community, no prior record. The prosecutor argued he was a flight risk and a danger to Elena. Cited the 3 violations, the letter, the pattern with previous partners. The judge took less than 5 minutes to decide. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Elena burst into tears. Sophie hugged her while Victor made more phone calls, already moving to the next phase. What happens now? Elena asked when she could speak again. Now we wait for trial. Could be a few months. In the meantime, Marcus stays in jail. Victor sat across from her. You're safe. He can't get to you. For now. For now is enough. The weeks that followed were strange. Elena went back to work, back to her apartment, back to some semblance of normal life. But it wasn't really normal. There were still security protocols, still the knowledge that Marcus was out there, even if he was behind bars. Victor's security team stayed in place. Elena protested the expense, but he wouldn't budge. Until the trial is over, we don't take chances, he said firmly. They saw each other regularly. Coffee meetings that turned into dinners, that turned into long conversations about everything except Marcus. Elena learned that Victor had a dry sense of humor, that he read obsessively, that he'd lived in 5 different countries before settling in New York. She also learned that he was patient. He never pushed, never demanded more than she was ready to give. Just showed up consistently, proving through action that he meant what he said. Sophie approved, though she'd never admit it directly. He's less sketchy than I thought, she said one night over drinks. Still keeping an eye on him, though. I wouldn't expect anything less. The trial happened in early December, 3 months after Marcus's arrest. Elena testified, telling her story to a room full of strangers. Jennifer Park testified. The previous girlfriend testified. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing was set for 2 weeks later. The prosecutor was asking for 5 years. Elena hoped they'd get it. She sat in the courtroom with Victor on one side and Sophie on the other as the judge read the sentence. 4 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation with a permanent restraining order. The defendant is prohibited from any contact with the victims, directly or indirectly, for the duration of his sentence and probation. 4 years. Not as much as Elena had hoped for, but more than she'd feared. Marcus was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her existence. Good. Outside the courthouse, Rachel Kim was waiting with her camera crew. How do you feel? She asked Elena. Relieved, hopeful, still processing. Elena took a breath. Mostly I feel like maybe the system can work if you push hard enough. What's next for you? Living my life? On my own terms, without fear. It sounded good. It was even partly true. That night, Victor took Elena to dinner. Somewhere nice, but not too fancy, with good food and better wine. So, he said, halfway through the meal, we had a deal. After Marcus, we'd figure out what this is. Elena smiled. We did have that deal. Any thoughts? She considered him across the table. This man who'd shown up at exactly the right moment and stayed through all of it, who'd never asked for anything except the chance to help, who'd kissed her like she mattered, and then waited months to do it again because she needed space. I think, Elena said slowly, that I'm not ready for anything serious. I need time to figure out who I am outside of relationships, outside of fear. Victor nodded. That's fair. But, she continued, I'd like to keep doing this. Dinners, coffee, conversations, seeing where it goes without rushing. I can do that. And I need you to know that I'm probably going to be difficult. I'm going to have trust issues and bad days and moments where I panic for no reason. Elena. Victor reached across the table, took her hand. I'm not expecting perfect. I'm just expecting honest. I can do honest. Then that's enough. They stayed at dinner until the restaurant started closing down around them, talking about everything and nothing. Plans for the future that didn't include running or hiding, just living. When Victor dropped her at her apartment, he walked her to the door like he always did. Thank you, Elena said, for everything. For saving my life, basically. You saved your own life. I just helped with the logistics. Victor's smile was soft. But you're welcome anyway. He kissed her then, slow and deliberate. Different from that first kiss in the club, but just as intense. Elena let herself fall into it, let herself feel without analyzing, without worrying about what it meant. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. Good night, Victor. Good night, Elena. Inside her apartment, alone for the first time in months without feeling afraid, Elena looked around at her space. She'd reclaimed it, piece by piece, changed the locks, rearranged the furniture, made it hers again. On her coffee table was the notebook where she'd written that stupid note to herself. Be spontaneous. Well, she'd certainly done that. Maybe not in the way she'd intended, but spontaneity rarely went according to plan. Elena grabbed a pen and wrote a new note. Be brave. Be honest. Be yourself. It wasn't revolutionary, wasn't going to change the world, but it was true. The next morning, Sophie called. How was dinner with Mystery Man? Good, really good. Are you guys officially a thing now? We're officially taking it slow and seeing what happens. Boring, but healthy, I guess. Sophie paused. You sound different, happier. I am happier. For the first time in forever, I actually feel like myself. Elena looked out her window at the city below. It's weird. Everything that happened was terrible, but I think I needed it. Needed to learn what I won't tolerate, who I actually am when I'm not trying to be what someone else needs. That's surprisingly profound for 9 in the morning. I'm full of surprises. After they hung up, Elena got ready for work. Real work, at her real job, living her real life. No hiding, no fear. Just forward. 3 years later, Elena stood in a different courtroom for a different reason. Marcus's parole hearing. She'd been notified she had the right to speak, to tell the parole board why he should stay in prison. Sophie had offered to come with her, so had Victor. But Elena went alone. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. She told the board about the impact of Marcus's actions, about the therapy she'd needed, the career opportunities she'd missed while dealing with the fallout, the relationships that had been affected by her struggle to trust again. But she also told them about what she'd gained. Strength, independence, the knowledge that she could survive worse than she'd ever imagined. I don't know if he's changed, Elena said. I don't know if 4 years in prison taught him anything, or if he's just counting down the days until he can start over with someone new. But I do know that I'm not afraid of him anymore. He doesn't have power over my life. He's just a person who made terrible choices and is facing consequences. The board deliberated. Parole was denied. Marcus would serve his full sentence. Elena felt nothing. No triumph, no relief. Just neutral acceptance that justice had run its course. Outside the courthouse, Victor was waiting. They'd been dating for 2 years now, taking it slow like they'd promised, building something real. How'd it go? He asked. Parole denied. Good. Yeah. They walked to a nearby coffee shop, their hands linked. Easy, comfortable. Sophie wants to know if we're coming to her engagement party, Victor said. We should. She'll never forgive us if we miss it. I still can't believe she's getting married before us. The word hung in the air. Us. Marriage. Future. Elena stopped walking. Is that a hypothetical, or are you fishing? Victor's smile was careful. Maybe a little of both. We've never really talked about that. No, we haven't. They stood on the sidewalk while people streamed past, living their lives, having their own dramas. I'm not ready yet, Elena said honestly, but I think I might be eventually. With you. That's enough. More than enough. Victor squeezed her hand. I'm not going anywhere. That night, alone in her apartment, Elena thought about how far she'd come. From the woman who'd grabbed a stranger in a nightclub out of desperation to the woman who'd faced down her abuser in court without flinching. She'd lost things. Time. Innocence. The belief that love was simple. But she'd gained things too. Self-knowledge. Real friendship. The understanding that strength wasn't about never being afraid. It was about being afraid and moving forward anyway. And she'd gained Victor. Not as a savior or a solution, but as a partner. Someone who saw all of her, the strong parts and the broken parts, and the parts still healing, and chose to stay. That kiss in the nightclub had changed everything, not because it was magical or fate or destiny, but because it had been the first truly honest thing she'd done in years. A moment of pure instinct, of choosing herself over making someone else comfortable. Everything good that came after stemmed from that choice. Elena had learned that freedom wasn't something given. It was something taken, fought for, earned through hard decisions and harder conversations. She'd learned that safety wasn't found in another person. It was built through boundaries and self-respect and the willingness to walk away from anything that made you less than you were. Most importantly, she'd learned that she was enough. Not perfect, not healed, not fixed, just enough. And that was everything. The city lights twinkled outside her window. Somewhere out there, someone else was having their worst night. Someone else was deciding whether to stay or go. Someone else was gathering the courage to choose themselves. Elena hoped they'd choose bravely, hoped they'd find their own version of Victor, or Sophie, or Rachel Kim, hoped they'd discover what she had discovered, that the only person who could save you was yourself. But sometimes, if you were lucky, you found people who'd stand beside you while you did it. That made all the difference.